Are you a relatively new Skyblock player? Have you spent a few million coins on dungeon carries, 3/4 Shadow Assassin, and a Livid Dagger? Do you ask tons of people for what your next upgrade should be, or watch countless videos on becoming better at the game to only still remain stuck on floor 2 dealing less than 50,000 damage? If this sounds like you, then keep watching, but if it doesn't, then this video probably isn't for you. Regardless, today I'll be covering the real reason why you aren't as successful in Hypixel Skyblock and exactly what you as a player need to be doing to fix these issues. So, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so as you can see, today's video is going to be a little bit different to sort of my usual style, because today I'm going to be addressing a very important question that I get asked almost everywhere that I go, whether it be in the comment section down below, my Twitch streams, my Discord server, or just anywhere that people can contact me. Now, by far, this has to be the most asked question in all of these platforms that I just mentioned, and it is a concept that to me has been very simple since the beginning of the game, but clearly others do feel differently, so I figured I would address it in today's video. Now, what is this question, you may be asking? Well, I feel like a lot of you guys would have already known this, considering that most of my audience does feel the same way, and that is just the basic question of what should I buy after I get a Baby Yeti pet? What should I buy after I get a Livid Dagger, or anything of the sort? If you have found yourself asking these questions, whether it be to creators, whether it be to your friends, whether it be people in public Discords, public lobbies even, or just anywhere, if you've been asking people what you should do with your money and how you can improve your damage, then this is going to be the video for you, because it's something that I just get asked all the time and I'm going to address it once and for all. So to get things started here, I need to talk about something really important, and that's going to be just the main armor set and the setup that a lot of these people generally have. I'm sure most of you can relate to this already, because a lot of my audience and a lot of people who do think this way do have something like a 3/4 Shadow Assassin set with a Zombie Knight chestplate and probably a Flower of Truth or a Livid Dagger or any weapon that's very similar. And most of you guys would have probably gotten carries up until floor 5 to be able to actually use this gear, and you've sort of just rushed through the game, you've gotten as much money as you possibly could have, piled it all together, and then bought this really nice and pretty fancy mid-game gear. But believe it or not, this by far has to be sort of the biggest downfall and the reason why so many people do struggle inside of Hypixel Skyblock, because there's a lot wrong with actually buying all these carries and getting all this gear, and I'm gonna talk about that right now. Now, before I do sort of speak my opinion and talk about everything that I'm going to mention in today's video, I just want to preface that this is merely just a guide, and for all I care, you don't have to listen to anything that I have to say, and you can completely disagree with everything that I have in today's video, and that is totally fine. However, I've been playing this game for quite some time now. I've been around before dungeons were even a thing, and I've been here for a pretty substantial amount of time, so I feel like I have got quite a bit of knowledge to bring to the table. So even if you do disagree with a lot of the points that I have in today's video, I still believe that there is some value to it, and it will help out quite a few players if it doesn't help everybody. But to keep things simple and to put them really bluntly, a lot of people play this game wrong. Now, there is no real set way to play Skyblock. It is pretty sandbox-like, and you can pretty much do whatever you want in this game. There are many things from farming skills to earning coins to running dungeons to doing a lot of different things. And whatever you choose to do, that is completely up to you and is all personal preference. But when it comes to buying dungeon carries and trying to max out your account and sort of speed run the game, that's something that I would highly disagree with, and I don't think any player should be doing it, because there are a lot of downsides that come to this sort of playstyle. I find a lot of early to mid-game players that do ask a ton of questions on how they should get better at the game, what weapons and armor they should buy, what should they spend their money on, and what are things that they should work towards. And almost everybody that I have seen who does sort of give this type of advice always tells you, go out and get floor 5 carries, go out and buy yourself this setup that I have right here, buy a Flower of Truth, buy a Livid Dagger, buy all these really expensive and relatively high-end gear, when in reality, this just doesn't work. The majority of the Skyblock players' mindsets are simply to just earn coins, get as much money as possible, because if you do that and you buy all of this really cool stuff, you'll be able to use all of that really cool stuff to earn back everything that you've spent on it. And of course, you'll be able to run dungeons, you'll be able to play competitively. Over time, you'll work towards a Hyperion and get some really nice mage gear, and you'll be all fine and dandy, reaching endgame in no time. But you see, the reality to this is that there is so much more to just earning getting coins, getting money, and being able to buy everything that you want. And leveling skills is something that I commonly see entirely neglected by this large majority of the player base, because people are so focused on getting all this money to try and buy all the cool gear that instead they don't really focus on their skill average. They don't really work on anything that isn't the combat skill. And as a result, they lack a lot of health, they lack a lot of defense, they also lack a lot of experience with just playing the game in general. And as a result, you're not going to perform well in dungeons, you're not going to have high damage, and you aren't actually going to be able to use all the gear that you rush to get, because technically you shouldn't have it. Working on your skills not only just sort of well-rounds your account and actually boosts your base stats, which by the way, your base stats are boosted by your catacomb skill as well, and they do contribute to how well you perform in dungeons. But your talismans are a part of the game that stay with you till the very end. Some of the talismans that I have here in my talisman bag, like the Village Affinity Talisman, the Vaccine Talisman, and some of these really cheap ones, I have had since the very beginning of the game. You can collect talismans over time, and the more that you collect and the more that you spend your coins on all these talismans, the higher your damage, attack speed, and other stats will increase depending on how you decide to reforge them. And ultimately, it's a part of the game that contributes massively to your damage, and it's a part of the game that will stay with you no matter what gear you do upgrade to later on. And the moment that you realize that you need to focus on things that are more important than just the armor and weapons you have is the moment that you'll realize that your damage is going to start going up, and the moment that you'll realize that your Skyblock gameplay is going to be a lot more successful and probably more to the ideal thing that people just want to achieve. So to summarize everything that I've really just said here, stop asking people for advice. Nobody's really gonna be able to help you out on whether you should buy a Flower of Truth, a Baby Yeti, a Livid Dagger, or any of the gear. Instead, ask yourself these questions. How good are my skills? Do I have lots of talismans? How much damage am I dealing? Try to get a rough understanding of what part of the game you're at. And when you see that you've really leveled up your skills, or you've really leveled up other parts of the game, maybe you have around skill average 30, maybe you've done some pretty solid work on leveling your profile equally, and you've got some decent stats, only then should you really consider, maybe it's time for dungeons now. I've gone ahead and played the game, I've done some slayers, I've leveled up my stats a little bit. I've already got a pretty decent setup. Maybe you're running something like strong drag armor, maybe even unstable with an AOTD. You have a decent damaging pet, you've already got some pretty good stuff on your side. And that's when you sort of go, alright, it's time to spend some money on dungeons, let's try this out. And play the game normally without the carries, because the carries kind of just destroy the entire progression of the game. Every guide that I have made, whether it be the weapon progression, the armor progression, or the dungeon, weapon, and armor progression guides, these have all been sort of made based off of the fact that you aren't rushing the game, and they've been based in a way that you should be playing through the game naturally, and the way that it was sort of intended to be played, and you'll actually benefit so much more going through it the correct way, because you'll progress naturally, your damage will go up over time, your EHP will go up over time, and as you become more and more experienced with Hypixel Skyblock, you'll be able to answer a lot of the questions that you had early on, and you'll be able to see all these things without the help of others, and all in all be a better player overall. Now I do want to stress that this does not mean that you shouldn't be asking people for help. It's not that you shouldn't ask people for advice, or that you should never upgrade and you should never be buying this gear, or never even playing dungeons at all. But what I'm trying to say is that if you're going to be asking people for advice, or you're going to be trying to sort of figure things out, and you want to progress and succeed in this game, ask people who know who you are. Your best bet is going to be asking some guild mates, or maybe some friends that you play this game with time and time again, because those are the people around you who know what you have. They'll know what skill average you're at, they'll know roughly how many talismans you have, they'll know whether you've done your fairy souls, how much you play the game, and sort of roughly where you are in sort of the progression of this game. Because quite frankly, there are so many factors that come into play when somebody asks me, should I buy a Flower of Truth? Should I buy a Baby Yeti? Does a blue whale pet work better than a Baby Yeti? These aren't simple answers to these very simple questions, and ultimately these things come with time, and a lot of people just don't really recognize that. One of the last things that I do want to address in today's video has to really be just sort of the fact that a lot of the people who do give out advice, and a lot of people who have been playing this game for a long time and have really expensive gear, aren't usually going to be the best people to be asking, because they actually played the game at a completely different time to most players. The difference between Floor 1 about a year ago and then Floor 1 today has changed quite drastically over the months. sort of forget that the gameplay was really different back then, because a lot of these people already had decent skill averages, a lot of these people had already done Slayer, and a lot of these people had actually worked on their outside dungeons profile without actually realizing they did that because it was the only thing that you could actually do. The only reason people like myself were able to run Floor 2 and Floor 3 in full undungeonized Superior was because at the time, we were around skill average 35, we probably did a lot of Slayers as well. I can only really speak off of my own experience because I am myself, of course, but a lot of people also had skill average 40 and a lot of the sweaty players had some really, really strong stats before even touching the catacombs, while a lot of the new players don't have that. They don't have these same resources, and that's the reason why their damage is so much weaker compared to so many other people. Skyblock is significantly more complicated than what you could have ever imagined. There is a lot more to just running dungeons or getting some decent armor or being able to do as much damage as possible. And if you are a player who strives to achieve just really high goals and wants to be the best player or wants to be really, really good, then you need to work on your account and well-round it as much as possible. And you need to drop the mindset of being able to speedrun the game and buying everything that you want with all the money in the world, because quite frankly, you can have a billion coins in your purse and have all the gear that you like, but if you aren't decent skill average level and you don't have really good catacomb skill, you are not going to be a very good player. So to really end off this video and finish up everything that I've had to say about progressing in Hypixel Skyblock, is that if you want to be able to combat everything that I have said and not fall into the same trap that all these people have, stop buying dungeon carries, stop going for really expensive gear. Upgrades are important, but not as important as you would think. And please, please, please work on your skills, work on your pet, work on your talismans, work on things like your cake bag. Your New Year cake bag actually contributes to having a decent amount of health as well. All these really little nitty-gritty things that do come in playing Hypixel Skyblock all contribute to your base stats and being able to well-round your account to be as strong as possible. And as long as you take your time, take it slowly, reinvest your money where you need to, and make smart investments that will actually boost your progression, only then will you realize the difference in damage, you'll realize the difference in gameplay, you'll be more experienced, and overall, you'll be a great player. And really, with all that being said, that's going to wrap up everything that I had for today's video. So if you did find this useful or informative in some way, then please do consider leaving a like and consider subscribing to the channel, as I make these Hypixel Skyblock videos every Wednesdays and Fridays. If you also found this video particularly interesting, maybe compared to some of my other videos, I talk about this stuff over on my Twitch streams all the time, so I highly recommend you check those out if you would like some more input on this. And if for some reason you are sort of like a late to endgame player who was watching this video and you feel like I missed something or you have some strong opinions about what I've had to say, leave it in the comments below. I'm always open to discussion and sort of figuring things out to see different opinions, because ultimately my goal is to provide as accurate information as possible, and I want to make sure that everybody who does follow the stuff that I do talk about in my videos can benefit greatly from them and work on themselves as a player overall. But with all that being said, that's going to wrap up everything that I had in today's video. And as always, take care and peace. I'll get my kismets. I'll get a dungeon key. Yeah, we'll just get the whole... Yo, what are you doing, bro? What are you doing, G? You okay? Yo, you good? Yo, why you look at me like that, bro? What are you doing, bro? Honestly, same, man. Shrek on drugs. Shrek on drugs for a year. Oh my god, you're not wrong.